Hello and welcome to the show. I start this week's Downhill Chaos with a Polish supercar. This is the Hussarya, I think, something along those. That's the best that my brain is going to do trying to pronounce those words. I think it's a rather interesting looking vehicle. Unfortunately, it doesn't spit fire out of the back of it. It's kind of a little bit of Lamborghini crossed with the Porsche 918. I think it's actually quite a cool looking vehicle. It has got one of the movable rear wings, and of course, being a supercar, there is a certain expectation for it to be relatively fast on the way down the hill, and things were going relatively well on the first attempt until turned into a corner, got it on two wheels, went for a tumble, managed to land perfectly on the course again, but yeah, gotta be careful with the two wheels around that corner. It is a commonplace to see cars have issues trying to not roll it through the next turn. I ended up running a little bit too wide, and in doing so, clipped a rock, bounced over said rock, and that's not a good place to find yourself, in particular with a car either. Now, one thing that I was having problems with this vehicle was oversteer. Surprisingly, tends not to be that big of a problem with cars going down this course, but there were some issues with this one. It may have failed very early on. It got a really good launch, and in doing so, it got kind of a big jump. I clipped the bush, and in trying to get the car back on the road again, promptly spun the vehicle around, so not really an ideal start. Again, fighting the car a little bit, and yeah, some more bounces. It was, on the most part, kind of normal driving. It wasn't too bad oversteering-wise, but you combine it with a bump, and that's when you're in a lot of trouble. Tried to turn in a little too soon to the hairpin, and that's not going to end particularly well. You kind of end up just going straight on. Another big two-wheel moment. Managed to keep the car in one piece. Didn't keep it in one piece through the next corner, though. Didn't actually roll over, but the big two-wheel moment put me out far too wide. And in doing that, clipped a rock face, and yeah, you're going to have an accident. There is very little margin for error down this course. There is a tiny little bit, but when the car's on two wheels around some of the narrower corners, yeah, it's tend not to end particularly well. The other thing with this car, it does, it's kind of the bumps that cause it the issue. It does fly quite well, but it can get upset dealing with some of the bumps, which, you know, let's face it, not particularly a massive surprise when you've got a supercar fighting its way down a rally stage. But when things are going well, yeah, I liked it. It was a nice car to drive. It was quite a nice responsive vehicle, even if perhaps a tad oversteery for my personal liking, and the two-wheeled moments could get on the scary side, especially. We've seen this from quite a few of the higher end cars. It's essentially grip roll that the things go through around some of the faster corners. The Voltic will do it as well, where it's just got so much grip and perhaps a slightly too high centre of mass or whatever, and it wants to sort of turn itself over. So you had to be aware of that down the course. Across the jump, it actually carried pretty good speed. On the big jumps, it landed pretty well. It was kind of the smaller bumps that caused the car the larger of the issues, and I was very scared about this second to last corner with the bump through here, and it's wanting to roll over. Had to be quite cautious through that turn. Still got some good speed. A little bit of a two-wheel moment around the final corner. Fly across the line and slightly whack into a tree. Unfortunately, couldn't quite get the angle right for the takeoff there. Was trying to carry as much speed as I could through that final turn. Yeah, and launch the car at the scenery. A little bit of a more fiddly car to drive, certainly. Up next, we have got one of the Lamborghini concept cars that I have absolutely no idea how to pronounce. It's a crazy-looking vehicle. It's a really... I love my crazy Lamborghinis. Even this one is a little bit too crazy for me. I like the Veneno level of crazy is good. This is perhaps a step too far. It's still quite a cool vehicle. I mean, look at the size of those rear tyres. A loss of fire as well out of the back of it. But yeah, it's kind of like a stealth fighter had a baby with a Lamborghini, and this is the sort of thing that would come out. Either way, again, another high-end supercar, expecting it to be relatively fast down here, and it was four-wheel drive. Unlike the previous vehicle, things were going very well on this opening run until we got an awkward landing. Car kind of bouncing back up and going for a roll, lost a lot of the rear parts of the car on that one there. Just an awkward landing was all it took to see the Lamborghini go for a tumble. I was trying to, of course, avoid the bush on the outside. This is an easy mistake to make. You're trying to stay as far to the right-hand side of the road as you can. However, in doing so, you do run the risk of, well, doing that and falling off the course. I carried too much speed, got a little bit of a twist coming down that section, was, going far too fast and couldn't get the car under control again, so we go for a big number of tumbles. Again, the vehicles were doing a remarkably good job of staying within the path. At this stage, we hadn't seen very many kind of go soaring off either side of the mountain. They were kind of just tumbling along and landing back on the road. This next time, though, didn't go so well. Trying to avoid the hikers, strayed again too far to the right. I clipped the back end that fired the car up, and then got the front end stuck to the front flip. And in trying to recover myself back onto the road, may have forgotten the brutal acceleration and kind of launched myself over the other side, and then we're kind of on our roof. You get an idea of the scale of the tyres, though, when it's up there. We do get it back on its wheels, but don't mess about with that section of track. Again, with a far too faster a run, twisting the car as we approach the takeoff for that jump. It means it lands nose first. That's not good. Breaks some bits, but again the car is managing to land pointing the right direction on the path. This jump was being a little bit of a pain. Again, with the bounce ups on the landing, meant I had no grip and couldn't get the car stopped. This time we're not going to land nicely on the road as we go for a couple of spins. Not too big a crash, mind, for that one there. It took a little bit of time. This car was more cooperative than the Polish supercar. It didn't have the same oversteer problems. It was better on the landing of the smaller bumps. This then had the inverse. It had the problems with the larger jumps. The hitting the ground of them was causing it a few issues. We didn't have any rollover problems with the Lambo, though. It was nicely around these corners. I don't think it barely got off all four wheels, and you could really chuck it down some of these corners. Quite a lot of grip through here, but it wasn't being translated into grip roll, which is always good. Fantastic acceleration, up to 80 miles an hour down there. I know that doesn't sound too much, but on this course, getting up to 80, 90 miles an hour is up there with the Formula 1 cars, acceleration-wise. So that is some seriously good going from the Lamborghini. Around this next turn, this was where we had to get things right. Even on this run, it gets a little awkward landing, but it can come back down in time to make the corner. Again, plenty of speed coming down here, and we do get a big twist off the landing, but it was just about controlled. I could fire the car down the side road. This one wasn't too badly affected by the bushes, so I could get away with being a little bit braver down there as we round the second to last corner across the nasty bumps. Caused no issue for the Lambo. Ran a tad wide coming into the final turn, launched it across the line, and got on the brakes. Almost made it through. The tiniest of dings on a tree there, getting the car stopped, and then immediately managed to drive into a rock. So almost made it down perfectly cleanly, but there we go. Yeah, it was just that little bit happier going down Mount Chiliad. Could have some problems with the big jumps. I think the suspension's so low. Car was bottoming out on the heavy landings. Our final vehicle is a car that I can pronounce. It is the Holden Monaro, a much more modern version of the vehicle. This one too could produce a good flamethrower, and I was hoping to see the Holden go relatively fast down here. Had fantastic acceleration. It was quicker than I was expecting this particular car to be. Also pretty good under braking. This vehicle had a interesting problem. I can't say I've had any other car with this one, especially down this first section. The kind of almost the bumping from side to side caused the car a lot of problem. In the end, I was pushing it a little too hard. I got about a millimetre away from a couple of rock faces and then couldn't stop the car in time, and then we have a very big off. That's a fairly common place to see cars have accidents, especially the way that I was pushing the Holden that time around with a bit too much speed. And yeah, we launched the car down. It does get stopped when things go wrong. Get a big tip onto two wheels coming towards the fast final jump, and that is not what you want to be having down that section of track. I can't bring it back under control in time, so the Holden is going to go for a rather big tumble. Again, another relatively common. Normally it's a bounce up from the landing that causes issues. Not too often do we see a car going on two wheels across the takeoff there. This is the section that caused all manner of problems, it didn't want to carry any speed down here. As soon as you tried to carry more speed, admittedly that time I clipped the outside of turn 1 that tipped the car on its side, and then it just wants to tumble over. Again, clipping of rock faces, not a good idea as we go for a big roll and then a big front flip, and eventually just about managed to land the car. Yeah, tiny clips on the rock face really upset this car. Often vehicles you can get away with it to an extent, but this one here, once it started kind of rolling over, it really wanted to go over, and that made the control sometimes a little interesting. Managed to stop it falling off one side of the hill, only in doing so to promptly fall off the other one, and then we're going to go for just as big of a roll down here. Managed to keep the door on somehow. I'm very surprised by that. And there we go. Door's back open, the boot's open, but it kind of got stopped. Again, this turn 1 was proving a little bit tricky, and then we're bouncing from side to side. I managed to get it launched massively in the air off of a rock there. That's an impressive amount of height to get, just kind of pinging off the side of the rock. Can actually carry a lot of speed through these corners, much like we saw with the Lamborghini. Unfortunately, that time around was too much speed. Put me too far to the left. I couldn't really bring it back in time to try and make a neat line through the hairpin, and I kind of just about went straight on. Not an ideal place to find your Holden, and a big bounce on the landing, amazingly getting away with it initially. As I try and fight the car for control to get it back pointing the right way, I end up in all sorts of trouble and find another rock to roll the car. The Holden went for a lot of rolls. It did like to tumble and fall over. But again, it was another car that was a pretty good vehicle to drive. The main issues were down here. Even on this run, we get a little bit on the side. Had to be incredibly careful as the car's bouncing around from side to side. Could carry good speed across the jump, and again had good acceleration. Up into the 70 miles an hour there, and getting the vehicle stopped again a little bit going on two wheels. I think perhaps, having watched this back again, the car was just lifting up onto two wheels ever so slightly, and over sort of the course of the runs and the attempts, maybe that's what would make the car feel a little bit uncomfortable through that first section, because it wanted to lift up a little bit, add to the undulations of the track, and it was just amplifying all of that. So I think that's perhaps where the Holden felt. It didn't roll over as such. We weren't seeing like the grip roll that we got from the first car and had from various vehicles, but it was just a little bit that was causing the car to feel uncomfortable. However, it's around the rest of the courses, or rest of the corners, it was, pretty good, to be honest. The acceleration continued to impress me down here. Of course, you're having to be a little bit slow down there, and we do get a bounce up on the landing. It is more controllable in this car. Higher ride height, wasn't quite bottoming out in the same way across the larger jumps as we were getting from the Lamborghini. Around the second to last turn, had no massive oversteer problems with the car up until there. It's a slide, but nothing too horrendous, and then the acceleration towards the line, the Holden clips the side of the hill and scrapes off a tree before coming to a rest quite neatly, actually, in all of that. I like the Holden. I think it's a fantastic all-round car. I mean, I always like Holdens, but this one, was really rather good at driving down Chiliad. Just once you got past that first section where it didn't quite like that bit there. Everywhere else, it was a really rather impressive car. Then we have a burnout to celebrate. On to the times, and it is the Lamborghini Egoista, I think, that's going to have to do, that goes into 12th place. That's a quick time, a 120.9. It puts it right up there at the top end of the table. It is just under a second down on the T20, so to go that quickly is really rather good going. The Holden equally is pretty damn impressive, into 23rd place with a 123.9, 3/10 of a second down on the Dodge Viper. It's quicker than the Hussarya and the Sultan RS. That's fast from the Monaro, and it did feel like a good car to drive. And the Aranera goes into 28th place with a 124.3, very crowded area of the table of this lot. It's only 4/10 of a second down on the Monaro, a 10th of a second down on the Rough, and the mighty Peugeot 508, same time as the McLaren 650S and the Mitsubishi Evo 6. So again, another very good time from that car, despite its oversteery issues. So yeah, three good cars. Two very difficult to pronounce cars, but yeah, they all made it down Chiliad really rather quickly, and the Holden liked to fall over a little bit. But yeah, that is it for this video, guys. As ever, I will put links to all the mods that I have used in the description, so you can download them, have a go with them yourself. But that's it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.